Yeladim, this week we are going to read two Parshiot again, Acharei and Mot-Kedoshim. Today we're going to start learning Acharei. Parashat Hashavua, Parashat Hashavua, Acharei Mot-Kedoshim. Parashat Hashavua, Parashat Hashavua, Acharei Mot-Kedoshim. After Aaron's sons, Nadab and Avihu, died, Hashem said to Moshe, "Go and tell your brother Aaron that he may enter the Mot-Kedoshim, the holiest place in the world, where the Shekhinah always rests. Only one day a year, on the holiest day of the year, Yom Kippur. No one besides him is allowed at any time." In the time of the Beit Mikdash, 7 days before Yom Kippur, chairs were arranged in the Kohen Gadol's home for the head of the Beit Din, for the Nasi, for the Kohen Gadol, the Kohanim's assistants, and for the king. Another 70 chairs made of silver were put out for the Zikanim, the 70 elders of the Sanhedrin. All these wise men and the tzaddikim would gather together and take their seats. The Chachamim of the Beit Din would rise and say to the Kohen Gadol, "When you enter the Mot-Kedoshim, Hakadoshim, on Yom Kippur, remember that it is the holiest place in the entire world. Be sure to perform the avodah in the correct manner and with the right kavanot in your heart. Through your avodah, the Jewish people will be forgiven for their averot. If you have sinned in any way, you must do a complete teshuvah and tell all the Kohanim to do teshuvah as well. If not, you will die." Once the Kohen Gadol did teshuvah, he would tell the Beit Din, "I have examined my deeds and have done a sincere teshuvah." The king would rise and tell the Kohen Gadol, "If you come out of the Kodesh HaKodashim alive and well, we will give you much honor." While the Zikanim and the king helped the Kohen Gadol to do teshuvah, a messenger would walk through the streets of the Yerushalayim and call out to the people, "Come out and give great honor to the Kohen Gadol who is on his way to the Kodesh HaKodashim." As soon as the people would hear this, they would come out of their homes. They wanted to escort the Kohen Gadol on his way to the Kodesh HaKadoshim. Try to imagine the splendid sight. The Kohen Gadol would come out of his house accompanied by the king and the Nasi, the head of the Beit Din, and the 70 Zikanim. They would be led by all the members of the royal family and the Levim, who were all wearing white and light blue silk garments. The Kohanim, dressed in white, would follow after the royal family. Behind them walked all those who performed any avodah in the Beit Mikdash. Then came the Zikanim and 250 Kohanim who held out their staffs to make way for the Kohen Gadol. This was a great honor for the Kohen Gadol. All the Talmidei Chachamim stood on the streets and blessed him. They also asked him to daven for them for a long life and good health, so that they may continue learning the Holy Torah. The crowd walked until they reached the courtyard of the Beit HaMikdash, where the Kohen Gadol suddenly stood still. As everyone waited in silence, he davened for the king, the Kohanim, and the Beit HaMikdash. When he was done, they all answered Amen with such great fervor that the birds flying above suddenly fell down from the sky. The Kohen Gadol then bowed down before the entire nation. With tears in his eyes, he turned to the Kohanim, who led him to his chamber. The Kohen Gadol stayed in his chamber for 7 days. During this time, the Chachamim of the Beit Din taught him the halachot of Yom Kippur over and over again. You must learn the order of the avodah by heart, so that you don't forget anything, they told him. On the night of Yom Kippur, bulls, rams, and sheep were brought before the Kohen Gadol. This helped him learn all about the animals that he would bring as korbanot. The day before Yom Kippur, the Kohen Gadol was careful not to eat too much. Eating makes a person tired, and he knew that he would have to be up the entire night of Yom Kippur. The Zekenim said to the Kohen Gadol, "You must swear to us that you will not change even a small part of the Yom Kippur service. Also, do not burn the incense in any other way other than in the manner that we have taught you." The evil Tzedokim do not burn the incense in the manner that Hashem has instructed. Upon hearing this, the Kohen Gadol would step to the side and he would cry. He did not want there to be any suspicion that he was a Tzedoki. The Zekenim would also move to the side and cry. They felt bad that they had to suspect an innocent person of doing something wrong. They had to do this because there were some Kohanim who did not obey Hashem. Rather, they burned the incense the way the Tzedokim did. The entire night before Yom Kippur, the Kohen Gadol stayed awake and learned Torah. Several young Kohanim would stay at the side and wake him if he happened to doze off. They would say, "Stand up so that you do not fall asleep." In the morning, the people would all come to the Beit HaMikdash to watch as the Kohen Gadol performed the Avodah. Although there were many, many people, Hashem performed a great nace, and there was suddenly room for everyone in the Beit HaMikdash. No one complained that there was no room for him or that he felt cramped. A partition was set up between, like a mechitza, was set up between the Kohen Gadol and the rest of the people. The Kohen Gadol undressed and immersed in the mikveh. Then he put on special clothes made of gold and purified his hands by washing them with water from the golden vessels. Dressed in all of the 8 garments, the Kohen Gadol began by doing the avodah of the Korban Tamid, which was done each day by preparing the wicks for the menorah. He also brought up the Korban Musaf, which was a bull, and 7 lambs. This was brought up only on Yom Kippur. When the people would see the Kohen Gadol dressed in clothes of gold, they would be reminded of the Chet HaEgel and do Teshuvah. Then right before he would begin the special avodah of Yom Kippur, he would remove those clothes and dress in white garments instead. Why did the Kohen Gadol change his clothes? He did this so that the bad malachim would not say to Hashem, "First your children sinned with a golden calf, and then the Kohen Gadol dressed in gold asked you to forgive them." Every time the Kohen Gadol changed, he would wash his hands and feet before taking off his first set of clothes, and then again once he was dressed in the white garments. That's why in Yom Kippur Yeladim you will often see people not wearing gold and wearing white clothes to remind Hashem that we are angels and not remind him of the golden calf. Now it was time for the Kohen Gadol to daven for Hashem to forgive his aveirot and the aveirot of his family. He placed his hands over a bull purchased with his own money, and he begged Hashem to forgive him. It was at this time that Hashem performed a great nace. When the Kohen Gadol said Hashem's name, his voice would be heard all over, even in faraway places. The entire nation would hear him. They would bow and say, "Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Li'olam Ba'ed." Blessed is the name of his glorious kingdom forever and ever. Then the Kohen Gadol stood between 2 identical goats. A wooden box with an opening on top was placed before him. He stuck his hand in and took out 2 pieces of gold. On one was engraved to Hashem, while on the other it says to Azazel. He placed the piece that was on the right hand on the goat, standing on the right side. He did the same with the gold piece in his left hand, placing it on the head of the goat standing to the left. Then he would wound a bright red string around the horns of the goat that was chosen to go to Azazel, to make sure that he did not confuse the 2 goats. Then the Kohen Gadol once again placed his hands on the bull's head and asked Hashem yet again to forgive his family as well as the Kohanim. This time too, all the Jewish people heard the Kohen Gadol say Hashem's name, and they bowed down and they repeated the bracha. Hashem forgave the Kohanim. The Kohen Gadol slaughtered the bull and used it for performing the avodah. He took a gold pan filled with burning coals in his right hand, and a large gold spoon filled with incense in his left, and he entered the Kodesh HaKadoshim. He put down the burning coals and scattered the incense all over them. The entire place filled with smoke, and the Kohen Gadol backed out, all the while keeping the holy spot in front of his eyes. He davened a short tefillah that the coming year will be full of blessing, enough rain in the right time. He asked Hashem to ignore the tefillot of travelers who daven that it should not rain. He also asked for good fruits to grow throughout the year. The Kohen Gadol could not stay inside and daven for too long. The people would worry that perhaps he had not done the avodah correctly and something had happened to him. He came out quickly and everyone breathed in relief. There were other special things for the Kohen Gadol to do on Yom Kippur. He placed his hands on the goat whose fate was to Azazel and asked Hashem to forgive his children. Then he gave the goat to one of the Kohanim who was led into a mountain called Azazel. The Azazel mountain was very high and full of sharp, dangerous stones. It was a mountain found at the far end of the desert. There were sukkot set up all along the way to the Azazel, and Kohen rested in each sukkah. 2 men escorted the Kohen to the first sukkah. Then the people who had been waiting in the first sukkah walked with him to the second. And so it was until he reached the Azazel. In each sukkah he was offered bread and water. Bread and water? Was it a Yom Kippur? Of course it was. But even though it was a fast day, the people offered him food and drink in case he felt weak from the long journey. He was allowed to eat to save his life if he felt too weak to go on. But throughout all the years, the Kohanim never did. When the Kohen reached the mountain of Azazel, he removed the red string that had been wound around the goat's horns. He tied one end of the string to a large stone and the other end to the horns. Then with both hands, he pushed the goat back and it rolled down the mountain. The goat rolled down the mountain filled with sharp-edged stones, and soon it was torn apart to pieces. The Kohen stood at the top of the mountain and called out, "So too shall the Aveirot of the Jewish people be destroyed." Do you feel sorry for this poor goat as you picture him tumbling down the mountain and getting destroyed? Well, you shouldn't. The goat was happy to have been chosen to play a part in the Yom Kippur Avodah. It was because of him that all the Jewish people would be forgiven. Finally, the goat came crashing down onto the ground, and it died as a sacrifice to Hashem. Hashem forgave the Jewish people, and the red strings suddenly would turn white. In the Beit Mikdash, there was a red string tied to the door of the entrance. Hashem made a nace, and at the same time, the string turned white as well. Now all the people knew that Hashem had accepted the teshuvah and had forgiven them. The Kohen walked back to the last sukkah and informed the people that the goat had been shoved down the mountain. They raised the flag to inform the ones in the 9th sukkah, who raised the flag to the ones in the 8th sukkah, and so on until all the people in Yerushalayim received this exciting news. When the Kohen Gadol heard that the goat had been killed, he went to read from the Torah. Then he changed from his white to his gold clothes and brought up korbanot. When he was done, he changed again, from the gold to the white clothes. He entered the Kodesh HaKadoshim and took out the gold spoon and burning coals he had placed there in the morning. And then again, the Kohen Gadol changed from his white to his gold clothes and completed the rest of the avodah. Yom Kippur had come to an end. Kohen Gadol removed the gold clothes and put on the clothes he wore all year round. When he came out of the Beit Mikdash, he was greeted with joy and excitement. At the end of the holy day of Yom Kippur, the people gave the Kohen Gadol even more honor and even more respect than they had given him even a week earlier, when he had left his home on the way to the Beit Mikdash. The entire nation, dressed in white and carrying torches, escorted the Kohen Gadol back to his home. They sang and danced the entire way. People hung decorations in their windows and lit lanterns on every corner. The streets of Yerushalayim glowed with light. The parade went on for a long time, and they arrived at the Kohen Gadol's house. way after midnight. At his home, they were all invited to a festive meal. The Kohen Gadol thanked Hashem for bringing him out of the Kodesh Kodashim, alive and well. The rest of the people thanked Hashem for accepting their teshuvah. We daven and we hope that someday soon we will merit in the glorious sight of the Kohen Gadol emerging from the Kodesh Kodashim when we get Mashiach. We want Mashiach now.